There is an issue. Don't go as far as to call it a problem on this show, but there is an issue facing college football right now. We have tabbed it the Nick Saban conundrum. Nick Saban is in his 15th year at Alabama. He is about to coach in his 9th national championship game in 15 years. And I dare say that if you were on the tarmac on January 3rd, 2007, there in Tuscaloosa at the regional airport, I would venture to say if you asked those folks, the most diehard of Bama fans, best case scenario, I don't even think they would have said, oh, he'll probably make the title game at least 8 or 9 times in the next decade and a half. Maybe they would have gone that far. I'm just saying, certainly no one outside of Tuscaloosa would have thought that. You didn't think you'd be there for 9 years, much less coaching 9 title games. So what I wanted to do tonight is I wanted to open the container and pull out a little Nick Saban truth pill for you. First, I wanted to do this, though. There was a graphic floating around. I think Fox Sports College Football tweeted it out today, and it was just showing the record for every year of Nick Saban and the years he's won the title. I was kind of fascinated, always have been, by the years that Nick Saban hasn't won a title. It's a lot easier to talk about those years. It takes a lot less time to talk about the years they didn't win a title. It doesn't take long, the 07 season notwithstanding. So since 08, they played in the SEC title game in 08. That was his second year there. They run up against Tebow and Urban Meyer, Percy Harvin, all those guys. And so they lose in Atlanta. Tim Tebow, Urban Meyer, those guys go on to win the national championship. The 2010 team, it was his worst performing team since he's been there. They lose to Cam Newton, but they lost a couple of games. So that 2010 team is the only outlier. Listen to this insanity. 2010 is quite a while ago. Since then, the only times they haven't played for a title, 2013, that was the Kick 6 game. 2014, they're in the playoff, and they run up against Ohio State, Zeke Elliott and the guys. They ended up winning the title that year. And then the next year, they didn't play for it. In fact, the only year that they haven't played for the title since 2014 is 2019. There was this guy by the name of Joe Burrow who came through Baton Rouge, and that LSU team, historic team, Bama played him to within 1 possession in Tuscaloosa. That is it. That's the entirety of the list. Those are the years in which they haven't played for a title. So I was looking at that earlier today, and I said, hold on a second, because I'm looking at the win totals for any given year, and I said, I think I just came up with a great stat. Here's the stat. I tweeted it out earlier today. For those of you who didn't see it, I think we have a screenshot of it. Listen to this insanity. Nick Saban, since 2008, has averaged 12.5 wins, which is noteworthy because you're only guaranteed to play 12 games a year. You only have 12 on the schedule that you're guaranteed. They have won more games on average per year than are on their regular season schedule to begin with. Obviously, that means ton of conference title game appearances, ton of semifinal appearances, ton of national championship appearances. And so I float that out there today. That's an insane stat. And anyone of sound mind understands how otherworldly that is. I had one guy come at me and say, well, yeah, but they play an FCS opponent every year. I just had to, you know what I did? I took it. This will work on podcast too. And I did what you should do with foolishness like that. And we took care of it. We took the trash out. The tweeter, this is a love the tweeter, hate the tweet. The tweeter, not trash. The tweet, trash. The FCS argument is a very lame argument because think about how quickly I could take care of that. I could just go schedule Akron or Miami, Ohio, not to hate on the MAC, but I could schedule a lowly, yeah, it sounds like I'm hating on the MAC. Okay, listen, Miami, Ohio, you're just going to have to take one for the team for a second. Whether I put Mercer or Miami of Ohio on Alabama's schedule, you understand they're beating them by 45 either way, right? And it's over early third quarter at the latest. It doesn't matter. I know technically if Miami, Ohio played Mercer, Miami, Ohio has a better roster. They have a better caliber athlete. But if you're really trying to argue semantics with me, Nick Saban's only averaging 12 and a half a year because he plays UT Chattanooga. Go somewhere else. You don't even believe that. Go somewhere else. So I was thinking this morning as I was recording the Late Kick Extra podcast and was talking about really a lot of the talk about all forms of 37 different ways you want to change college football, some of you, not all of you. And it really brought me back to what we talked about back in the summer. And it's just added a new layer onto it now. In college football, we have had for a while what I call the Nick Saban conundrum. And that is a whole lot of people thinking that instead of just waiting Nick Saban out, we've got to blow up the entire sport to circumvent the chokehold he has on it. Nick Saban will not be around forever. Believe it or not, eventually he will retire. Nick Saban right now is, and always will be, as far as I'm concerned, the greatest we have ever seen do it. Until someone comes along and proves otherwise, he is the greatest to have ever done it. A lot of people think they're searching for competitive balance, and it's here already, is my point. So you got Nick Saban, the greatest of all time, in the midst of the greatest dynasty not only college football's ever seen, but one of the best sports has ever seen. And you got Nick Saban doing what he's doing, and you got a lot of measures being put on the table to counter Nick Saban. And you got a lot of folks out there proposing a lot of different things. Expanding the playoff, you get an NIL proposal here, a transfer portal proposal there. And it's really all rooted in competitive balance. People want more competitive balance in the sport. But what I have come to realize is it's already there. This would be like for you Yoopers up there in Michigan, for anyone up in that portion of the country. When you look at Lake Superior in February, normally you see a whole lot of ice. Now, it'd be pretty stupid for you to walk to the shoreline and say, we need more water in Lake Superior. We got to get some more water in this lake. The water's there. Like you know as well as I do, the water's there. It's below a very thick layer of ice, which is also water as it turns out, but it's there. So you got one of two options. You can either wait for the water to thaw, or you can wait for the ice to thaw. Actually, Colin, I'm going to cut this. I'm going to say it again. You got one of two options at that point. You can either wait for the ice to thaw, and there's your water, voila. Or you can not be patient, and you can take dynamite to the ice. Problem being, it's still way below freezing, so that stuff's just going to refreeze again. College football, the general public, has chosen option B. They're not waiting Nick Saban out, because Nick Saban has come along in the worst possible era in our society for him to come along in. He has come along in the on-demand era. No one buys a TV guide anymore and waits till Thursday night at 7:30 for their favorite show to come on. You just watch it whenever you want to. You have everything whenever you want to. Now, that's a great thing. The bad news is you think that's the way everything's supposed to operate now. So no one wants to wait for Nick Saban to retire, because the bottom line is, outside of Alabama, outside of Nick Saban, no one else is dominating. Everyone says Alabama and the big boys. There is no Alabama and. It's just Alabama, period, at the end of the sentence. Who else is even remotely in the same galaxy as them? Nobody. Are you telling me Clemson is? Clemson just played in the Cheez-It Bowl. And I'm not knocking Clemson, because they have been, next to Alabama, the most dominant program. But think about how relative that is. If I were to do nothing more about this sport, no transfer portal, no NIL, no expanded playoffs, I just take that guy out of Tuscaloosa and replace him with an average to above average coach. Who else is dominating? Like, who else do you have to redesign this entire sport to circumvent? It's already there, guys. The competitive balance in college football is already there. The only thing masking it, the only layer of ice atop that lake, is the greatest of all time. And no one wants to wait it out. No one's willing to wait, and that's my biggest concern about the future of this sport. My biggest concern is one day Nick Saban will retire. I just wonder how much of the sport will have been dynamited into oblivion for people who were, at the end of the day, just unable to cope with greatness. This is what greatness will always look like. And see, no amount of dynamite you take to the current structure will be enough to take him out. You took him off the road in the spring, you instituted a playoff, you did all sorts of different things for players to transfer out. You have, at every turn, people have tried to change the construct of this sport in order to really cut off the flow of success that's like a raging river, been flowing into Tuscaloosa for a while. He's just gotten better. He's just taken the changes, and he's only used them to strengthen the chokehold he's had on college football. You ought to just sit around and wait. That's really what you ought to do. I don't know if it's 3 years or 10 years. You ought to just sit around and wait. The supermodel's already in the room. You can either get 27 plastic surgeries and try and look like her, or understand eventually she's going to get bored and get up and leave. I don't want to be looking in the mirror after she does and say, oh, what have I done to myself? Just wait. Just wait. Those two words of advice will be heeded by approximately none of you, and I understand that. But thus, or therein lies, I guess, the Nick Saban conundrum, because I just gave you the answer, and instead you will seek answers elsewhere, and they will fail you, and you'll come back to me, and I'll say, don't look at me. You got the 27 plastic surgeries, not me. There goes your nose.